Hi everyone and welcome to Google Education on Air. I'm Eleni and today I'll be sharing with everyone how to unleash creativity in the classroom. Now I'm just going to share my screen and we'll get started. I do have Steve here with me as well in case there are any technical difficulties, but by the looks of it I think we're all okay for the moment. So we'll get started. So creativity in the classroom. Now, for those of you who don't know who I am Eleni and I'm a Year 6 teacher at Furbank Grammar School. I'm a Google certified innovator and trainer and also Hapara certified educator. I'm also the host and founder of Teach Tech Play and the creator of Genius Hour Fair. And this year I was awarded the 2016 Digital Learning and Teaching Victoria Educator of the Year. Now, if you want to know more about Teach Tech Play or Genius Hour Fair, make sure you click on the images and they will take you directly to the websites. Now, for today, we have only got 30 minutes, so I'm going to share with you how I develop creativity in my classroom, as well as through using Google Docs, slides, mind maps and forms. And I'll leave question and answer till the end. So make sure if you have any questions that you do pop them in the link and we'll answer those at the end. So creativity in the classroom. I think any 21st century classroom today needs to be flexible. Without a flexible learning space, students can't interact, they can't collaborate, they can't work to solve problems. And that's the understanding that I have and what I do in my classroom. So this is an image of my classroom. And today I'll be sharing with you different lesson ideas that I have developed with my students to enhance creativity in our learning. I won't be actually showing you how to use the tools, but rather how to apply them in the classroom. Now, this is one of my favorite quotes from Sir Ken Robinson, that creativity is now as important in education as literacy, and we should treat it with the same status. And I think this is really important. Whenever you are doing anything in your classroom, creativity needs to come out of it. We always hear of schools killing creativity, and our students have a wealth of ideas and knowledge that we should be embracing and encouraging them to do. And as a teacher, a lot of people don't think that this is something that we can embed in our teaching and learning. And I'm going to show you ways as a teacher that you can capture students' learning through the Google tools. Now, the 5 C's is something that I've created. You've probably heard of them before, but I love it when in my classroom students are creating, capturing, collaborating, connecting and communicating their ideas. Without students doing this, I think that you're really losing those 21st century skills, and you need that to embrace creativity. And it's amazing what students can actually do. Now, with technology, we know that there is a whole range of apps and tools out there. And I know in my school, we use one-to-one iPads in our Year 6 classrooms. And in doing that, the apps that are available are endless. But I think as a teacher, you need to know what the purpose of using each app or application is, whether it's Google Slides, Google Docs, Blogger, and Google Sites, Forms, anything that you use, you need to have a clear purpose and you have to know the end outcome that you're wanting to achieve. And this is a visual that I have made just to help my understanding also of the different tools and what is out there to support students develop their creativity. Now I'm going to jump into Google Docs. Now, Google Docs are amazing, and if you're not using them collaboratively, I think you really need to change the way you are using them. It's always great to allow students to have every way they can access. I'm just checking that everyone can hear and see me. I think we may have a problem. I think we're all good. Just give me a second and make sure that everything's working. Yeah, I think it is. Sorry about that. I just got a message saying it wasn't working, so I think we're all working now, so it's all good. Now, with, what was I saying? Google Docs. I love getting all my students involved in Google Docs. I think that by having Google Docs in a collaborative setup in your classroom really allows students to connect their ideas. Now, I use Google Docs particularly in writing when we're trying to get ideas for our plan. Now, whenever my students are starting a writing piece, I know that this question always happens, and I imagine some teachers out there listening today could probably relate and know the sense that, do we have to do a plan? And the amount of times I was hearing this in my classroom from students saying, do we have to have a plan before we start to write? And I kept thinking this is actually the most critical stage of it, and students aren't wanting to do it. So I had to think of a way that it can work to make it, sorry, I'm just making my screen bigger for everyone. There we go. So everyone should be able to see that now. So I was using Google Docs for my students to jump in and collaborate and share their plan. I found this really rewarding, not only for myself as a teacher, but for students to start to develop their ideas of how it all works. And by them jumping in and writing their plan and making it visible to everyone, other students began to add comments on the side through the comment feature in Google Docs. And by doing this, it started a discussion and their stories developed even further. So here you can see one of my students wrote where their story is taking place in the mountains. And then another student said, yeah, but what mountains? Like whereabouts? And then it allowed the student to rethink and re-engage what exactly it was related to, and then add more information. So my students began to sort of see the benefits of planning their writing before they started. And this was really amazing. I do it all the time in the way that students just now love it. In the way, if I don't use Google Docs for planning a piece of writing, they sort of get disappointed because they get ideas from each other. And an idea that you may think, or one of my students may think, is not creative, the others then get really excited about it and go, oh, I really love that idea. I'm going to use that next time in a story, or I can incorporate part of that into mine. So students start to read and develop. And this I found was really great for those students who also had no ideas. When you would give them a picture prompt, they would sit there going, I'm not really sure what I need to do. I don't really know, I haven't got any ideas. But by having it visual for everyone to see, they all started to share and develop. It is a process that takes time, and I would recommend, if you are doing it, to set up the table and put students' names in the table before you start, because once they all jump in, they know where they start. And I'll let you know, first time doing it never works. It does take a bit of work for it to actually develop and get working. And this was another example. As I said, for one of them, I said to my students, we're going to go write an explanation piece of writing, and I didn't have a Google Doc set up. They said, oh, I'd love to see what other people say. Can we do it together? So I actually now have got to the stage with my students where they set it up and they jump on and do it themselves, which is really, really rewarding. Now, there is a video here. I'm not going to play this video today, but you can catch this video at a later stage. It just shows you what I've just explained now, and you can also hear from the students in my class as well. Now, Google Slides is another one that I love to use all the time with my students, and this has really developed this year, particularly when I've done word study. So what my school does is we do word study every week, where we have focused word work, and students get given a set list of words, and we follow the Words Their Way program, and they have to sort their words and develop their word knowledge and understanding. And I was finding that my students' work was becoming all over the place. So they were taking images on their iPads, they were playing games, they were putting it in their book, and then at the end of the week, when I needed to see what they had done, I was either trying to find 100 books to take home, or where's this bit of information? Have you put it in your Google Drive? Oh no, it's in my camera roll. I'll send it to you in an image, in an email. And it was just everywhere. And it got really annoying as a teacher, trying to think, how can I make this more streamlined, that my students can really show me their learning and develop what their knowledge of what they're doing. So I set up a Google Slides presentation and shared this out via Hapara for my students, so automatically dropped it into their accounts. And what then they had was a range of activities that they could do, And each week they had to insert a picture of their sort. So they had to show me their understanding and write their understanding. So through doing this, I was developing my students' sense of the way they produce their work. They also had to complete 2 activities. They got to choose. We gave them that option, and the ideas and the things that they developed was quite amazing. So here you can see was one of my students' work. So the words she was working on and her understanding. So she sorted out her words and taken a snapshot of those and just inserted it automatically into Google Slides. And then she's explained the meaning and what she's learnt on the right-hand side. And as a teacher then, what I just did was I selected it, and I could add a comment straight away and give her feedback. So as the week progressed, they got their words on the Monday, and they would sort them, develop their understanding, and then complete the activities. So as the week went through, I could just jump on, see what my students were doing, add comments, and it was really handy. And the best part about this was when it came to digital portfolio time, my students simply just uploaded the whole slide deck at the start of the term, and all their word work was there, and it was already done with teacher comments, and it just streamlined the whole way that we were doing things. So here you can see this student chose to do it in her book, so she just took screenshots of it and then put it all in one place. Saves students the time of uploading individual blog posts to their digital portfolio and having it all in one place. And here's another example. And here you can see even when they've played games with someone, they've taken a photo of the game board, and also if they've completed activities on Literacy Planet Online, taken a screenshot, and then I've got evidence of what they've done. I'll just skip through that because we can keep going. Another thing that we did in Year 6 and how I used slides was for book club. Now, book club in my classroom ran over 3 weeks. So we divided the book up into thirds, and each week students had to read a different section of the book. And while they were doing that, they had to complete certain activities and develop their understanding within a group. So students were grouped according to ability, and the books were aimed at a focus that they were looking at. So this student was reading No Star to Wish On, and so she's put the book title there for me. They then develop a character profile where they draw what they vision the character to look like and start to describe their understandings, how it connects to you or the world, how the character connects to other characters, and a description of what the book is about. So this develops as they're reading the book as it goes through. At the end of each week, I ask students to do a summary. So they write a summary of what they've developed, because what I found was a lot of the students would forget what had happened in stories. So I wanted them to document it and ensure that they could document just the key bits of information to hold their understanding. I also had my students record a page out aloud. So this student, there was an image there, but it's not there now. I'll make sure I add that in. But when I copied it over from my students' work. But the blue at the bottom was actually a recording. I removed the recording now because it is of one of my students, and she introduces herself and gives a reflection at the end. But she would take a screenshot of the page she's read and then record herself. So on her iPad, she would record herself, upload it to Google Drive, grab the link and link it in the Google Slides. And this was all done on their iPad, so it worked really nicely. And then as a teacher, I could actually hear my students read. And I know as a Year 6 teacher, sometimes it is really hard each week to hear your students read. And this is a way I was able to track their fluency and the way that they were reading over the term. Another thing that we did was, because they were in groups, I always loved linking their discussions to Bloom's taxonomy higher order thinking questions. So you can see here that there's a group discussion. So the group would come together and they would discuss what they were doing. They would discuss that question in relation to the book. They would all record it and then upload it. So as a teacher, I know it's always hard and we're always pressed for time to actually get around and hear every single group. So every day I would focus with a different group, but I may have missed the discussion that they may have had. And I found this really frustrating because I knew the talk was the most critical stage. So I said to them, let's try this, let's record it. And this became really rewarding in the way that I could hear the way students were articulating their thinking and really developing what they were doing. And then when I met with them, I could then unpack it further. And if they didn't discuss it, they then wrote their own reflection. I also had students put any new words that they didn't know, because I always found that when they were reading, they always came through words, and then I would encourage them to use them in the writing process. So I always included that. And then at the end, they obviously had to write their own short story, including these words. And then a book review for the final part of that book. But Google Slides allowed my students really to think about how they were doing things and document the process in a way that they chose. So they could take photos, they could record their voice, some even made videos of their thinking to the book. So instead of their book review being written, some actually got really confident and said, hey, can we make like a advertisement for the book? And it's a great idea, sharing what it is about. Now, another way I've used Google Slides is through Choose Your Own Adventure. So I'm just going to switch screens here. Let me just jump back here. And all right. So it's not this one. That's the one I'm going to talk about next. Where is it? Choose Your Own Adventure. So through this, the students created linking to their units of inquiry, and they simply linked the text to different ideas. So I have a slab of cardboard, which bin do I put it in? So is it the green bin or the recycling bin? If I click the recycling bin, it says, good job, that's correct, go to the next question. So they ended up creating sharing their knowledge through Google Slides and developing questions, which they then shared with other students in the school. I'm going to fly to the next one. This was one of my students this term who looked into homelessness as part of our PYP exhibition, and she wanted to share her learning through the information she shared with people on the day of the exhibition. So she developed questions, and you click the correct answer that you thought, sorry, you're incorrect, go back. So then when you develop your understanding, she actually led people through this. So it was another way for students as a summative assessment to share their learning in a different way. Now, another thing that I also love to do is not only connecting students within my own classroom, but linking to the wider community. Now, Spheros is something that I use all the time with my students. I'm just wary of time, so I'm speeding up a little bit. But Spheros are lots of fun in the way that you can integrate them into maths, into language, stories, coding. It's endless the ways you can do it. If you want to know more, I've written a blog post on Spheroids in the classroom, so you can check that out. But this idea actually came from my students when we did Sphero Arts. So for birthdays at my school, we don't actually bring in treats due to allergies and all the other things going on at schools these days. So we end up doing a special sort of class activity. So we participated in Sphero Art. So all my students jumped on and we dropped paint on the Spheros and we created this masterpiece as a class. But then my students wanted to know what other people were, like, is anyone else doing this? I said, I don't know. So the students put this together and I shared it out via my Twitter. And we have had schools from Germany to America to other schools in Australia that have just started adding their Sphero Arts as well. And my students every week, like, has anyone else added it? Would love to see. So if you have done Sphero Art, I highly recommend that you get involved and get your students to be part of that as well. And for exhibition this term, my students were looking into where we are in place and time. And I thought it would be great to connect them virtually with other schools to know where other schools were and what they were doing. So by simply setting up a Google Slides, I shared it out via my Twitter, and then my students have given a little profile, this is all the instructions, of where we are and what makes us who we are at our school. And they've drawn a picture that represents everything about us. Now, we've continued to share this, and you'll see here we've had schools from Germany, we've had other schools from Australia that have also added in their little sense of where they are. Now, this project has ended because we had our exhibition on Friday, but if you are willing to be part of it, we would love to still see it. We can definitely use it next year as well to continue. So we've had lots of people from all over the world, including China, which is exciting. So I'm just going to jump back because I've got 2 more things and I've got 10 minutes to go. So it's always push for time in these things. All right. So And you can click on all the images, as I said, if you want to find out more about those. But Google My Maps is another way that I love to connect my students in the classroom, whether it's anything to do with maps, location, place, holiday recounts, area, distance, linking literature to world locations, analysing data, and as well as homework tasks. I use slides and mind maps all the time for homework, especially for maths. I set up a slide deck and I say to students, you need to create a worded problem related to the concept we're looking at in class, and then they all have to answer at least 5 of the others that other students have created. It gets them in the understanding the process of creating a problem, checking that it's right, and also trying other people's. So My Maps is another thing that I use, especially for homework tasks, where you simply set it up and students can add information to the one map. So here is an example of holiday recounts where students plotted where they were in the world and they just wrote a paragraph and added photos. Holiday recounts, I find, can get quite laborious over time, and we need to make them interesting for students. So this is the way that I do it. Also, when we're looking at different natural disasters around the world, volcanoes around the world, the students read a book and discovered different types of volcanoes, but they had no idea where it actually was. So they ended up plotting them on the map. Now, My Maps is continuous. You can think of a million things. We've even used it when we've read books related to the Holocaust, and then students have developed information and plotted it on the map to develop their understanding further of where it was, what actually happened. So that's another way to develop creativity, to really empower students to have a go and do it. Now, Google Forms, a lot of people think, yeah, it's great, you know, you quiz students on pre and post testing, which I do as well, but there is a lot more to it. I use them for exit tickets at the end of a lesson to get an idea of if they understood the concepts covered and how they're feeling, as well as student well-being, which is always really important. I find that interesting to hear from my students how they're feeling on the playground. Did they want to come to school? Did they not? But the best part of Google Forms is getting your students to create one together and then sharing it out. And that's what my students did. So we were looking at data, and when we're looking at data at a school, you know, especially in Year 6, they have done it above and beyond of collecting the data and getting a real understanding, going to other classes with their notebooks, analysing it, but I wanted it to be bigger. So I shared it out, and we had, within 1 week, 1,165 responses. This provided my students with real life data that then they had to then analyse in pairs. They then went through this data, and it was seriously amazing in the way that they could articulate and see what people had filled in, what they had said, why they had said it. And it was really great because, you know, we always have some people who like to be funny with these things, and we even had Harry Potter fill it out. So then students could see, by using My Maps, I imported the data and they could see everywhere in the world that had actually filled in their form. And by doing that, it also showed them the sense of digital citizenship, that how easily something can spread across the internet. And my students did not believe how far and wide around the world they had gone and reached to get people to fill it in. So there's many lessons that can be covered there. Now, I'm just going to stop there and jump to any questions and see if there are any questions. Steve, you've been having a look. Now, there was a question here about, do others feel confident using Google collaborative tools in junior school? I must say a lot of teachers were a little bit hesitant at the start, but at my school what we do is we have mini teach meets. So at the end of each term, teachers need to share something for 2 to 7 minutes of what they've done. And by other teachers sharing, they sort of got the sense of how it all could connect and how students are really empowered. And for us, we've just started using a new LMS this year for digital portfolios, and having students create Google Slides and Google Docs, they only had to upload it once directly from their Google Drive, and it automatically updated. So there wasn't that need to keep reposting and to have 50 million blog posts on words knowledge every week. So it really condensed what we're doing, and teachers felt like it created less work for us. And in doing it, it just became easier in the whole process. Now, I can see there's a question there from Naomi. Do you mean that spaces need to be flexible so kids can collaborate? Definitely. So I think, you know, sometimes in schools we are limited to what our spaces are, but I think if you don't have set desks. So in my classroom, my students don't have a set place that they sit. Every day we come and we move. Every time we go to do some sort of different type of learning, we move. We always regroup, and our tables are on wheels. So my students just wheel the tables and sort of create clusters depending on what they're doing. If they want to be apart and know they're going to get distracted, they move the desk and they work independently. I also let students, I have low desks on the floor so they could sit on a beanbag and still work at a table. So I think, you know, letting students think about what works best for them. Can you add a video instead of a recording? This is from Lisa. And definitely, so if students want to record themselves, they could record, upload that to Google Drive, and then just add the link as well. It's absolutely endless in the ways that you can incorporate it all into Google Slides, Google Docs, linking all their learning together. I've got another one here from Rachel. How did you import the data to My Maps? So when you are in My Maps, I've got 4 minutes to go, so I don't know if I'll have time, but I'll just jump over and see if I can just show you. So in My Maps, let me go back up here. Oh, I haven't got an image. Just under where where your information here is, under each layer, before you add anything to that layer, it will have an import button. And when you click on import, what happens then is it automatically links to your Google Drive and the spreadsheet, and it just it asks you, what do you want to plot? And you just go location, and then it just spits it all out. So it may seem difficult, but it's actually quite easy. And if you can always make a short little tutorial up if you are still after that. Next one is from Jennifer. What platform are you using for digital portfolios? So last year, my school, we were using Google Sites, which worked really, really well. But this year, we've just implemented a school-wide LMS. So we are using Firefly this year as our digital portfolios for that reason. We didn't have any issues with Google Sites, but because we moved to the LMS, we wanted just to make everything in one place, easy for parents, students, and we are doing digital portfolios from year 3 to year 6. Question from Adam. Do you use student emails from the department, or students make their own? Now, because I am working with primary students, we cannot set up Google accounts individually because they are under 13. You do require to be 13 years of age. But under the school account for Google Apps for Education, the school creates them for the students. So they are allowed, and they use their school email. So the techs sort all that out, not the classroom teachers, which is really, really handy at my school. But yeah, so if you're in a primary setting and you're not using Google Apps for Education, don't have students go set up Google accounts because they are not 13. They're not meant to have a Gmail account till they're 13. But you can set up as a school, and then it follows on with the general school email in that setup process. Next one is from CJC. Can you share the form around the world if the kids are using special protected Google logins? So what I do as a teacher is I create the form from the teacher account, so then it goes through my account, not through my students, because yes, I don't want their email addresses to get out there. So whenever I am sharing something out to the globe, I actually let my students, I have a good trust with them, and I think as a teacher you should these days show them that you have trust. So they actually jump on and they use my account. So I just have it open. They jump on, add everything they need there, and then I remove my students and share it out. Any ideas, the activities to collaborate in senior high school? I think anything that I've shared today using slides or docs in any sort of learning, I've gone into high schools and helped set up training, and anything that you want collaborative content, you can easily do it. I know we're running out of time, so I've got a couple more questions and then I'll have to end it there. So what changes have you seen in students' learning outcomes? So my students have just been more engaged. They absolutely love coming to school. If I'm not using the tool sometimes, they're like, but why? It makes it so much easier. And I think that's what you need to embrace as a teacher, is to listen to your students. There is a time and a place, and we don't use it all the time. But at different times, it is great to show them what is possible, because then they actually open your eyes up to what you can do. And a lot of these ideas actually haven't come from me. They've come from my students. Now, from Fox, I can see you do collaborative writing. Do you type on the iPads using text-to-talk or a keyboard? My students have keyboards attached to their iPads that they type with. They don't do text-to-talk. Where did you share the form for the students to get responses? So I shared the form via Twitter and Google Plus when I wanted to get that global connection. So students made the form, they created their questions, we created it together, we discussed what type of questions, and then I share it out, and then we come back and analyze it a week later. So I think I'll have to stop there. I do have a blog and website. So on the slides, it is at the top, which I'll just jump back to them and show everyone. So if you click on my slides at the top, it's elenikaritzis.com. You can also find me on Twitter. And I do a lot of everything I share. I also share on Teach Tech Play, which is a monthly web show. So make sure you do check it out. And a lot of what I've shared today, I've shared previously there. So reach out to me if you have any questions. Happy to help out where I can. And I hope you enjoyed today. So that's it from me today, and I've got to pass on to someone else. It was quick, 30 minutes, but I hope you've gained something out of it, and I appreciate you all joining today, and enjoy the rest of the Google Education on Air. So thank you, and see you later. Bye.